Hey babes, my name is Nadia Sayre, and I am here, ignore the background, to read another chapter of The Rebels, chapter 13. And as you can see, I'm doing it myself in the quietest space I can find at home, because I don't have a studio, but I know some people who really want to hear the story, but they can't read it. So I'm putting it up here. And thanks for joining me. So, let's get into The Rebel, shall we? Chapter 13. I can't really say that dawn broke the next morning. More like it slouched sullenly over the mountains like a teenaged vampire wannabe forced to get up before sunrise, accompanied by its older, heavier brother. Last night's drizzle. The plus side of the rain is that we managed to refill all our canteens. Alex looked fretfully up at the sky. I hope Corey won't be sent out into the rain today. His mom's sensible, I said from where I knelt, laying out more bars of food. She bundled him up well enough yesterday. Besides, her benefactor visited yesterday. Dudes like that rarely see their women 2 days in a row. She fidgeted, picking at her fingernails as she paced. Wonderful. Back on edge again. We ate, though nobody was by any means satisfied. I surveyed my empty pouch dismally. We'd better wrap things up and get the hell out of here, I said. I sighed. I'm out of food. I'm sorry, Leo said miserably. We've ruined this, haven't we? I waved her off. We had no idea how long we'd be here, and honestly, getting you out and away from the Corpsmen will be more good done than we'd thought. You know, Sonia said, staring out at the watery sky thoughtfully, I don't think I've ever heard of a Corps before. Like, what is it? You've seen it, I rolled my eyes. It's spelled C-O-R-P-S. Oh, you mean corpse! She grinned with delight. Suits them. They're dead men walking. No, I sighed heavily, staring at the sky and begging it for mercy. Just no. Alex shook her head at us, and Leo looked bemused, probably wondering how we were still alive. I asked myself that every day. By noon, I was ready to shoot someone out of sheer frustration. Every time we tried to angle back towards the east and freedom, we ran across roadblocks with security checkpoints. What's all that? Sonia asked, waving behind us. Done with being cold, wet, and tired, we huddled under a lone evergreen growing between two commercial buildings on a side road running south from State Street. Jazzy, stop laughing. I mean it. It gave us a chance for a rest out of both sight and hearing of Steve. I was surprised that the kids hadn't uttered a whimper all morning. The assholes in the Corps must have done a real number on them. All right, that's it. I looked up at the startled faces around me. I need something to call them besides those assholes in the Corps. I said corpses. Sonia gave me an aggrieved look. But no, you didn't like it. It was too simple for you. I'm willing to reconsider, I grimaced. It's just, we have Steve, and we know what that is. We do? Leo asked, bewildered. It's the soldiers, Alex murmured, watching us like we were her new favorite soap opera. So why can't we think of something more like that? I finished. What about Dorothy? Sonia offered. How do you get that? No, I shook my head. Nope, don't answer that. It works. I'll take it. Alex rolled her eyes but didn't look at us. Something well down the street caught her eye, and now she barely paid attention to the conversation. Leo shrugged. Back to the original question? She gave us pointed looks. On the far side of that gate is the prison. Steve? We nodded happily. She continued, Steve uses it as an armory. Takes are parked in service there. Men walk freely when they view cleaners as furniture. Men talk freely when they view cleaners as furniture. Alex ignored us now. I got worried. Alex should have been salivating for a chance at that kind of target. Sonia poked her head around the corner of the building, looking north for a moment. I think the parking lot for the district school buses isn't too far from here. That building's hard to forget. She pointed across the street to a sea-green monstrosity towering over the rest of the drab, gray concrete blocks passing as architecture. Could be useful, Alex murmured. Guys, check out that building over there. She pointed through 2 windows to a 2-story block south of us. I saw 3 Steves walk in a while ago and 2 Dorothys walk out. The Dorothys look messy. I don't know. The place is giving me the creeps. Fine, let's go have a little look, just to see what has them so interested. I know you want to. I held my hand out, indicating that Alex should take the lead. We headed behind the buildings and were rewarded with a short alley that dead-ended on another building. That one relied on a keypad to lock its doors, so Alex pushed straight through. We found a traditionally locked door next to a broken window, then took the window through and out the other side. The little girls thought it was fun, being passed from person to person through a window. Their faces lit up, and Cub raised tiny fists over her head, grinning. Thank goodness for the window. I don't think anybody knew how to pick a lock. A guy I knew growing up had taught himself that for fun, but he died in a motor accident 3 years ago. Best I could do was hotwire a car. Fat lot of good that did, with most cars being out of commission. Well, a bus might be susceptible to hot wiring. Most of those were old. The 4th building down from our starting point put us directly across the street from the creepy place. I never saw any other people enter or leave in that time, though let's face it, there were periods, I'm looking at hanging upside down over a window frame here, where nobody watched the place. Still, if Alex thought something was hinky, I'd follow her gut. The building we squatted in had a strong draft, and most of the windows looked like they'd been boarded up for more than a year. We lit a tiny fire at the back, behind a broken wall, watching the flames dance in the breeze. The children and Leo were pressed to sit closest, to warm them quickly. I looked away to let my eyes adjust back. Wouldn't do becoming night blind while we were running around in occupied territory. Being out in the rain was great. It highlighted the fact that we were cold, wet. Being out of the rain was great. It highlighted the fact that we were cold, wet, and sore. It also helped me notice every ache. Getting up this morning had been painful all around. Finding out that the muscles in my ribs could scream in protest just by breathing was something I'd have been happy to never know. I stretched before trying to sit, for all the good it did. I'm too young to feel this damn old, I thought, rubbing my shoulder. Alex insisted on being the one to keep watch, and I gladly let her. The windows were chest high to her, and I guessed her to be in her mid-20s, well past the age where crawling over an object 3/4 of her height was easy. I just closed my eyes and saw that skinny Steve's face again when, from the front, I heard, "Fucking hell! It is a brothel!" My eyes popped open in time to see Alex heave herself through the window. I lurched to my feet, leaning heavily on Son to wake her as I did. By the time I made it to the window, Alex leaped onto the sidewalk, crossing the street without slowing down. Shit, 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 shit! I spun towards Sonia. Do you still remember how to hotwire cars? I'd shown her a few times, for shits and giggles. Son nodded. Find those buses and get me one! You're our exit. She spun, running back for the back without question. A small one! I shouted at her retreating back. She waved without turning. I whirled towards Leo, who stared at me with wide, frightened eyes, clutching her kids. Give me 5 minutes head start, then follow me in. Shit's about to get bad. How will I know? Count! I bellowed as I flung myself in a rolling dive through the window. It was a rare occasion that I made a perfect landing, and thank God this was one of them. If I hit wrong, there's a good chance I'd have busted a shoulder or broken my neck or back. But when you get it right, it's one of the sweetest things in the world. The concrete felt like a hard mat instead of a bunch of, well, concrete. And I rolled to my feet, straight to my feet in a run. Halfway across, the shooting started. I burst through the door into a large open room. To my left was a door labeled stairs, and to the right a hallway opened with enough space to have rooms on both sides. I had a gun in one hand and saw a man down on the ground, writhing feebly in a growing pool of blood. Trigger warning. A teenage girl huddled against the wall, hands up, trying to shield herself. I gave both no more than a cursory glance that took in a horribly scarred spot on her right flank and continued down the hall. More shots sounded, and I could tell they came from the rear of the building, but which floor I didn't know. In a burst of false bravery, I flung open the first door I came to. A naked Steve frantically threw clothes around, searching for a weapon. Movement on a bed tucked in the far corner showed a girl, not more than 18, sitting up groggily. She was naked, making it easier to see the bruises and welts marring her skin. She too had scarring on her flank, and I had enough time to register a K branded on her. The soldier looked up, holding his belt in a holster. I shot him point blank without warning. I missed. 2 more quick shots followed. There would be no mercy for rapists, no prisoners, and no enemies at our back. Get dressed now, I told the girl over my shoulder. I checked out the hall to see if anybody would stick their head out. We're here to help. The girl stared at me, uncomprehending. From everything we'd been told, these girls were taken to punish their families. They're marked so they can't go home, and we left them here, they'd probably be killed. She still didn't move, too shell-shocked or stunned from the beating. I repeated the order in my best bellow. It startled her out of her funk, and she began fishing around for clothes. I continued down the corridor before she finished. The next 2 rooms were empty, and the only thing left was to clear the other side of the hall. Gathering up my stupidity, I opened another door. Empty. 1 left. As I reached for the last doorknob, I heard a crash in the room. I flung the door open with my right hand, left ready to shoot somebody, only to find Steve on the ground wrestling with a woman. She looked a bit older than me, her face twisted in the grimace of a life-or-death struggle. I danced around the edges of their fight looking for an opportunity. When the opening came, I stomped on his shoulder, making him howl and pinning him down long enough to shoot him. A part of me was mesmerized at the sight of the small hole that occupied the spot where his eye used to be. The woman jerked her chin upwards from where she lay, unable to stop trembling. "There's more upstairs," she gasped. "There's 2 girls out there who could use your help. We have a bus coming and a woman with kids. Get ready." She nodded as I raced back down the hall to the stairs. The girl in the front room was moving, though slowly. I took the stairs quickly, my gun held in front, pointing up. These stairs were the kind you saw in commercial buildings, 5 or 6 shallow steps, then a small landing with a right-hand turn and repeat. They were the kind that could make you dizzy if you ran up enough flights. The door on the top, and only, floor swung loosely on its hinges. I cautiously poked my head around the frame, but only saw a derelict hallway, ceiling panels loose or missing, with doors opening off of it, just like the lower floor. In the back of my mind, I had been aware of more shots being fired, though I was more concerned with keeping my own head in one piece. The deep barking of Alex's Ruger was offset by another sound. More of a staccato that made me think Alex had run into some trouble. More trouble, I amended. I moved to the closest door to my right and checked the room. I had to make sure we wouldn't have anybody shooting us in the back. Inside the room was yet another girl in her mid-teens, red hair and a floating mess around her head, staring in deep shock at the body sprawled across the bed in front of her. "Get dressed!" I barked, then moved on without waiting to see if she had heard. Across the hall, through an open door, crouched another teen, this one wearing lingerie. The soldier lying in front of her, still dressed, still alive, and moving. He crawled slowly towards the girl, who moved back, casting around desperately for something. I stepped briskly in and pulled the trigger. Bang! Splat! The slide locked back, and I triggered the magazine release, dropping the empty magazine into a pocket and pulling a full one out of a cargo pocket and sliding it in. Racking the slide was automatic at this point. We drilled for hours to be able to do this without any input from the brain. Which was a good thing. My brain, hung up on the horrors of the last few minutes, had quit all higher functions. If it was left in control, we'd all be dead in another 5. The girl moving snapped me out of it, and I motioned for her to follow me out. The 3rd and 4th rooms were empty, and the 5th had 2 women in it, looking about my age. There was another man down, this one definitely dead. The hallway took a turn to the right, and just around the corner I saw Alex crouching in a doorway, bullets peppering the hall around her. She'd pop out like a jack-in-the-box and fire off a round or 2, then duck back in. From the way she moved, there was definitely one Steve on my side of the hall and maybe another one on hers. Shit. I wasn't fond of heights if I had nothing solid to hold on to. So, after climbing up a tree, preparing to jump onto the rope swing from 15 or 20 feet above the ground, I'd often stand up there for ages, trying to nerve myself up. Eventually, I'd realize I'd never be ready, and there was nothing for it but to let go. This felt like that, only this time, the possibility of dying wasn't just in my imagination. I never stopped, moving in a diagonal down the hallway with a gun in each hand, firing the whole time. The Steve on Alex's side of the hall fell silent first, caught by Alex when he tried to shoot me. I crashed into the wall and used it to rebound, pinballing back. The remaining soldier had stood up, the better to hit me since I was making such a wonderful target of myself. Alex got him too. I didn't even bother firing by that point. I'd swear I felt the wind of the bullets tearing past my face. I'm still convinced that the only reason I didn't die right then and there is because I never stopped moving. I managed to make it through a doorway the second time and finally had a degree of cover as I caught my breath. "Don't shoot!" a woman's voice called. "We're all unarmed. There are no more soldiers down here." "Come out, slowly," I called back. "Hands where we can see them." 3 women stepped carefully into the hall, hands held above their heads. A middle-aged woman took point, doing her best to shield the younger women behind her. She was unusual in that her dress actually covered her body. The other 2 were teens again, a blonde and brunette, and the black-haired girl had tears streaking her face. I mentally reviewed the women I'd seen since entering the building. Considering these girls were supposedly taken to punish their families, Steve had managed to only steal the beautiful girls. Naturally. When they were halfway down the hall, the eldest of them asked, "Who are you people?" "Name it," Mary had said. "Own it." "We're the rebellion." "What rebellion?" "Honey, we're the only one in town." I hope you enjoyed this chapter of The Rebels, and I am endeavoring to be here more regularly. So, because there are 3 of these books and they are all as thick as this one. I lie. The second book is thicker. But anyway, I intend to be here next week, so I hope I see you then. Bye.